Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I am so excited today. We have Tequila family in the house. This is a connect of a connect. And if you listen to Turmeric and Tequila, you know that these are my favorite interviews because we haven't even connected in person yet, but they are a good friend of one of my connections and friends of friends of friends. So we're always starting off from a great point with that kind of energy. But I am welcoming Mara Smith. She is the founder of Inspiro Tequila. She is deeply passionate about tequila, obviously, business, being an entrepreneur, and then involving women in her entire journey. So I'm going to give a quick intro about Mara, and then I'm going to let her run because we have a wealth of information to share. She is an expert in the space, but Mara is a former attorney in Chicago, started drinking tequila when she was looking for a clean, gluten-free spirit that fit into her active lifestyle. She and her friends enjoyed the versatile, carb-free, and zero sugar spirit, but they were not drawn to the traditional offerings. For years, Mara searched for a tequila brand that was additive free with a look, taste, and aroma that appealed to her and that she could share with her friends, family, and proudly display in her bar. That perfect tequila simply did not exist, so she decided to create one. Without further ado, Mara, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Hi, so nice to be here.
Yes. Well, so, okay, there's your formal introduction. I love this. It sounds, I started drinking tequila quite literally because it was plant-based. And I always say it was like the best of all the poisons because I'm here for training and hard things and hence the anti-inflammatory turmeric. But then tequila side, the social, the fun is it's a passionate piece of my world. So we had to find that balance. Tell me, how did you even get in? Why'd you start drinking tequila? And then tell me about how you were like, okay, how do we level this whole situation up?
Yes. So I started drinking tequila for a number of reasons. One, I was looking for that clean spirit option that I didn't feel bad the next day. So although I like wine and enjoy wine, because of the sugar, I would not feel good the next day. Vodka had this really strange effect of waking me up in the middle of the night. I don't know why, but and in fact, I stopped drinking all alcohol for a number of years because I unfortunately was suffering from severe like reflux and found that most alcohol like exacerbated that and made it worse. So then as I started trying and seeing what would work for me and not bother me so much, what I discovered is that tequila, I wasn't feeling terrible the next day. It was sitting better with me, like high quality tequila, 100% agave tequila, and not kind of the bad mixed tequila that you used to get sick from when you're younger.
Yeah.
And so I just found that I felt better, and I'm not mixing it in like sugary drinks or sugary margaritas. I'm drinking it a really clean way, usually, tequila soda, maybe a little bit of fruit. But so that's kind of how I started drinking tequila, and that became my drink of choice. So tequila soda really became my drink instead of like people were ordering, vodka soda, and I was ordering a tequila soda. And I generally just didn't feel terrible the next day. So that's kind of how I started drinking it. What I did discover though, as I started researching a lot of tequila brands, as I was becoming a little more, not a tequila connoisseur, but learning more about different brands, starting some research and discovered that so many tequila brands, really the ones that we all know and love, use additives.
Yeah.
So they use coloring, flavoring, glycerin. And when I learned that, I was a little taken aback because I said, okay, well, I'm drinking this because I want this really great, clean spirit option. But I mean, I don't want additives in my food and I don't want it in my drink and I definitely don't want it in my tequila. So that is when I started kind of on the search for an additive-free tequila brand that had kind of the same taste profile that I really liked, but that was additive-free and also had like a look from a bottle design aspect. I know you have a marketing background, so I don't have a marketing background, but the bottle design was important to me and how it looked, and even from the aroma profile part of it. So that is where I kind of was really searching for that brand and didn't didn't find one. So I had some, just crazy idea that I would create my own.
Well, I think being an attorney is always nice because even if that's not your specialty in that arena, like you have some sort of base of what, because the legal side of establishing anything is really, really critical. But I'm super impressed that number one, not only did you have, family, full-time job, totally different, arena of life. And then you're like, well, I see this situation and I can't do it better. Or I think I can do it better. However, like you were just saying, tequila is just like big food and big pharma, where the biggest brands that have the biggest dollars are the ones you see the most. So, they can make it cheaper doing these additives. You're entering into an arena that's highly, highly competitive amongst some very big dogs that are very deep pocketed. And we're going to talk about tequila and being intentional with involving women in your journey. But I think one of the biggest things I love to highlight in all my conversations is taking the leap, regardless of how big of it, this challenge in front of us looks. And it might not be your thing. You might not be super prepared or have all this experience, or maybe you do, but just that first step, I think, is the biggest one. So tell us a little bit about how you're like, okay, I've got this idea. I think I can do it better. What was your first point in like navigating that first step into the industry?
So I think for me, it was all about research. So as you said, I do have a law background. And so for that came kind of naturally for me. I also think women tend to do this in general anyways, before they put their idea out there or get into something, even women before they apply for a job that they may even be overqualified for. Like, I feel like they come in extra prepared because they don't feel as confident going in as maybe a man would. So for me, that involved research. So I was, listening to webinars, reading books, like learning as much as I can about the industry. So I even took a course offered by the CRT, which is the governing body in Mexico for tequila, on the production and history of tequila. So I really wanted to understand like the production process, why they're using additives, where in the process they're using them, and how it's expediting things or things like that. So I wanted to really understand. I wanted to understand the brands out there, their positioning. So that's really kind of how I started. I just started doing a ton of research, like books, listening to podcasts, webinars, reaching out to industry experts. That's how I went about, like, just understanding the industry in general was the first thing I wanted to do. It's like you have a like really comprehensive knowledge of, how tequila is made, and how different tequilas are made differently. And even I did tons of research on all the different types of distilleries and which distillers. I knew I wanted a female master distiller. So I started researching which distilleries were owned and operated by women and who the female master distillers in the industry were. I ended up finding a distillery and a separate master distiller, Ana Maria Romero Mena, and basically bringing my own chef into like someone else's kitchen to create taste profiles. But that's kind of how I dove in. And I think even though it's daunting to maybe pivot in a career or enter a new industry, I do think all the resources are out there and available. So, but there's no getting around hard work. Like, you have to be willing to, really dive in and do a lot of the background work and due diligence. But if you're willing to do that, it's, we have access to so much information.
Yes.
So it's possible. But that was really my initial approach. It's just learning as much as I could.
Yeah, absolutely. The upside of all this social media and internet and all this information at our fingertips is that the information is at our fingertips. It's right there. So you got to do some digging. I think you got to find good information, because there's a lot of bad information as well. But it's remarkable how much you can find just doing, research behind your laptop and figuring out an industry. And I do think connections in that space are really critical. You obviously came up talking on my interview with Mike Morales, and it sounds like it's a very tight tequila family. So I'm excited to get to know more of the mafia fam and like how it all runs if I'm welcomed. But how important was it, working alongside people already in the industry? And do you feel like you were embraced as you came into it?
So actually, it's interesting. Often people ask, well, what's it like being a woman in the spirits industry? Because a big part of this was I saw the potential of being able to make an impact by lending another female perspective to a very male dominated industry. And what I always say is that actually for me was not the biggest hurdle in entering the industry. It is that it is actually a really like insular industry. I didn't realize that everybody kind of knows each other, and coming in as an outsider, there are people who have been in for a really long time and worked their way up through, the spirits world or the bev alc world. And I came in as a complete outsider. So gaining, earning respect, gaining credibility as an outsider, that actually for me was a big challenge.
Sure.
And people like Mike, I feel like once they saw that I did do it right and I have a really authentic traditional process, and we weren't trying to skip steps. We were really trying to adhere to like the tradition of tequila and come up with like a really great product, not just a beautiful bottle and not just great marketing and story, but really great product. And once I had people like him, like experts in the area who tasted it and were like, wow, it really is good. I think that's, you really have to prove it, had to, that was the proof of concept for me. And that's how I had to kind of prove myself in the industry, because I do think it's hard coming in. It's like, well, what do you know? You
Yeah.
haven't been in this industry for so long. But I think the fact that, as we talked about, I did do so much research to really understand it and have a really good, kind of basis before I just like went in and like, I'm just going to go and make tequila. I really tried to have a great understanding ahead of time. So I had research. I knew who Mike Morales was. I had read his books. I had read his, he has a book on like, I think it's like something like the babes and tequila or something like that. It's a very small book about all the women in the tequila industry. So I'd like read that. That's how I found my master distiller. So, and I think that's also just kind of how you earn the respect of people in any industry, is coming in looking like you're really prepared and that you've done your homework.
Yeah.
So, but I do agree, it is this kind of like tight knit community. I knew I needed some industry expertise. So actually one funny story is that I read an entire article on why not to start a tequila brand. And at the end of the article, it said, but if you're going to, you should reach out to Greg Cohn because he helped market Patron tequila. And I'm like, okay. So instead of like heeding any of the warnings in the article, I sent a cold LinkedIn message to him, to Greg, and he responded, took the phone call, was enthusiastic, liked what I was doing. He's been consulting for me since then. He was like the first person I brought on. And then he introduced me to other industry, veterans. So I think, but again, those cold, outreaches and going through LinkedIn, things like that, I think it's always best when you come in really prepared. So everyone that I reach out to, I did make a ton of connections, mostly outside of the industry, to be honest, mostly with like other female founders, to get connected to just this great community and create this, network of amazing women. But I think the way that I approached that, again, was going in with a lot of the legwork done. So being very specific in an ask, coming in with a knowledge about what their background is and what their specific, kind of expertise is. I always say, like, don't go in saying, oh, can I, pick your brain? Like, I go in really specific with how I maybe can lend something that's helpful for them and what would be helpful for me. And also really having a good understanding of their background. So I think that's the best way to approach anybody, to be honest.
There's a lot of valuable nuggets within that. I love that. As I have a lot of athletes or former athletes that listen to this, and I think it reminds me, as you're speaking to this, is it mirrors like the kind of like the corporate world in general, or the athletic world, where you come in as a freshman, you got to work your way, particularly if you're like high level college. And freshman, you carry the balls, you learn the system, you come in as prepared as you can, like training, but you're still not on that level. And then sophomore, junior, senior, you kind of work your way up and earn your respect. And that's, as you were saying, that's kind of like what I was thinking. I'm like, of course, you got to enter every situation. Come correct as much as you can, but then you just got to learn and stay humble and then work your way in. And I think in industries that are protective, I actually really like that, like coming from CrossFit and lacrosse and whatnot. It's very cultish in the best way, but it's so mission driven and so from their heart space, even if it's their financial space and how they make a living, but they're so protective because it's their passion, it's their love, it's their community. And I appreciate that protectiveness of it. So if you can understand it and work your way in, like I think you did, I think that's amazing. And I tell all my people working to like facilitate relationships, because that's the base of all this. Go on LinkedIn, try and just reach out to someone and utilize those connections, because we're all human beings. And if someone sees that you bleed something, you're truly passionate, I think other passionate people will be like, okay, this girl, she's serious about this. She needs to fix this, but this is good or whatever. And then if they've ever been helped, I think they're willing to help in return. Was that some of your experience?
Totally. And honestly, and I also am like, everyone who DMs me or sends me a LinkedIn message, like I reply to everybody. I mean, my team sometimes like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I take like all those meetings. I'm sure I'll talk to you. But again, I'm so much more inclined when someone comes with something specific, like I read your story and this really resonated, or I love the story that you wrote, that you're giving back through Purple Bicycle, and I love, project, and I'd love to hear more about it. And can we talk about this or this that I'm looking for my business? Like those being really specific. I'm, so much more inclined to be like, yes, I'm excited to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I like your analogy also with the athletes, because I also think you go in and going in, being inquisitive and open to learning. So I always like to say that I'm like to be a learn it all and not a know it all. And I feel like going in and people, knowing that you respect that they maybe have, more experience, and being open and wanting to learn from them, and having, there's some takeaway from every single conversation that I have. So I think going in that way too, and being like open to other people's ideas and learning from them, it also makes people embrace you more and want to bring you in. And then you will, like, as you start off a freshman year and you're going to learn and gain, you're going to gain respect, and you're also going to grow and develop. I feel like that's kind of how you do it in business too, is you always want to grow and learn more. And I think going in and being, intellectually curious and open to learning more and open to learning from people, as opposed to going in kind of with like a closed mindset, like, okay, well, I'm doing it this way and I know exactly how it should be done.
Exactly.
I just don't think you're not going to innovate in an industry going in that way.
Right. Well, you can do all the research that you can and whatever, but in some of these conversations, if you are open, there's so much intel right there without you trying to resist and be like, here's the rules, here's my red tape, here's how I do it. If you're just relaxed and just listening, there's stuff you can't even research and find. Like you find the in between, just being around people that are quote unquote better than you. And then that's how you kind of level up and get better. And as we get older, I can't say this enough. I'm actually getting back into CrossFit and competing. I'm training with, I say kids, they're 27, they're whooping me, but I'm leveling up around them, getting back into something I was like an expert at. But you can learn, and like as that level rises, all boats rise. And as we get older, we don't maintain that skill set. Like you have to be really intentional about going out there and being like, okay, I'm not going to be the smartest in the room or the strongest or whatever. And you just go listen and learn. As kiddos, you do it, but as we get older, you get out of that. And I think that is like the fountain of youth, if you can kind of stay in that mindset.
Totally. I feel like then you also, like, there's still so much to learn. I mean, I learn something
Yeah.
new every single day. I'm starting in a whole new industry and a whole new career. And, and I think going in like that, I mean, that's kind of what makes it exciting.
Totally.
And not stagnant, that there's so much more to learn.
Yeah, that journey. All the metaphors come back. You're like, it's not the destination, it's a journey. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's a Hallmark card. And you're like, oh shit, this is true. It's happening again as I get older. Well, so tell me about, how did like diversity and inclusion come in? Like, did you have an experience where you felt maybe marginalized as a woman, or like, where did this passion piece to include women and be intentional about your journey in this respective space come from?
Yes. So, actually, I probably was one of the few women in the room for a very long time, but it never really occurred to me, I guess, until later in life. So, right, I started out, I studied more mathematical subjects in like undergrad. I started in engineering, and then I was in accounting, and then I worked at a really large law firm. It didn't occur to me that like much later that I was like, oh, there were really no women really in my department and no female partners, which is why when I decided I wanted to start a family, I left the law firm and went to go work at McDonald's Corporation, because I mean, I had great experience, but I had like no role models to look at, like how you could balance like a large law firm life with a family. So I think I've always been in those situations, but never really kind of reflected on it too much. I think for me, because I was re-entering the workforce as a woman, being out of the workforce, home raising kids for a number of years. And, for me, it was important that I could like do something to make an impact. If I was going to go in and do this, like, yes, I want to have a great tequila brand. I want it to be a tequila that I love to drink and my friends love to drink. But once I started researching the industry, and it didn't take a lot of due diligence to uncover, there are just so few women in the spirits industry. And once I discovered that, I thought, well, not only can I create something and really focus on this like thoughtful female consumer, but I can also just bring another female perspective to the industry. And if I was going to do that, I'm just very transparent and very authentic about like everything I do. So if I was going to do that, I'm like, well, then I really have to have women involved in like every part of our process. I couldn't like just give it lip service and say, okay, well, we're bringing a female perspective, and then like my, advisory board's made up of all like veteran industry executive men. Like it had to really, really for me feel authentic. So I said, okay, I want a female master distiller to bring this to life. I want women involved in every part of our process, from like operations to sales and marketing, and all female advisory board. I try and work with agencies that are, women owned. So it was just important for just personally for me to be like super authentic. I mean, I'm so transparent that literally every brand, if we even create a cocktail with them, if we put them on that we're doing a collaboration, like they literally have to be brands I like. I mean, I tasted a cocktail with a brand that we're gonna maybe make a cocktail with, and I didn't like it, and I literally couldn't put it on there. Or someone was gonna put on a list of picks, like founder picks for a holiday, a bag. And I looked at the bag and I'm like, well, I would never carry that. You can't put that on the list. So I just like being super,
I like it.
truthful and authentic. And so for me, that's what I had to bring to it. I mean, the only perspective I can have is a female perspective going into this, but I just wanted to see, like, could I create this entire great brand and have all women, as part of it and bring it to life.
That's so huge. And I don't know how in depth, I mean, being such an intentional research human, I'm sure you had this process like navigated and unlock. However, I don't think a lot of companies still understand that you can, we were just talking about this before we got on the recorded mic, but how you can promote a message, because in this day and age, I mean, my company, we do consulting and marketing and branding, primarily with aligning strategic partnerships like ambassadors and whatnot. But I only work with mission driven humans and companies, meaning like, great, you have a product, you're great at it, but if you're just doing it for the margin, I'm not your human. You need to do it. It's like, we're giving back, we're doing something bigger. And the flip side of that is, just like as we were talking about how much information's at our fingertips, our consumer is savvier than ever. And I have so many conversations with high end, big, huge potential accounts, blah, blah, blah. And there's still this disconnect of them truly understanding how savvy our young humans in particular, or over 21 if you're consuming this product, but how savvy the consumer is. And they can know where you're from, what you did, who the distiller is, where your kids go to school, whatever. I mean, information's everywhere. So I love when I get to have conversations like, well, I'm just going to tell the truth and I'm going to let the whole human side be out and blah, blah, blah. Where back in the day, I was kind of like, ooh, you don't need to tell that. Now I'm like, humanize the brand, talk about your kid's soccer practice or whatever you're comfortable about, like the process to get the female distill, like all this is extra steps. And it's so much harder than just going what's cost time effective. However, the beautiful thing, it's authentic marketing. All you then have to do when you sit down and do marketing is tell the truth and tell your story versus hiring somebody to create something really fabulous. Like, it's a very old school mindset. So I really wanted to take a moment and applaud your approach, because it's the truth. And I know that our young people, or people, will consume, even if they don't love the taste, which I believe that they do, will do it just because, like, oh my God, look what this woman did, how intentional she was around it. The bottle's beautiful, it tastes great. But really, I do it because of the process. Consumers really have not been as far as they've and as advanced as they are right now. So the companies, I think, are just shifting to catch up. Have you seen in your process, have women or whatever reached out to you, being like, we love the product, but like the story, the mission, XYZ is super impactful to us?
Yes. And I think I also consider this consumer a really thoughtful consumer, like me, like you. We
Mm-hmm.
care about what we eat and drink, and we care
Yes.
about the brands that we support. And we don't talk down to our consumer. Like, I think of her as being very educated, that she can find out that information, and she is doing her own research, and she wants to know what's in it. She wants to know the transparency. She wants to know there aren't additives in her food or drinks. So I think, that's how I view the consumer, as being someone who's like me, who's like an educated consumer and
Mm-hmm.
cares about things and is looking into them and doing their research. So that's always how I approach it. Um, and yes, I do think people love to hear that it's an authentic story behind it. If I just went in and like, oh, we made a tequila for you, and they were like, who is it? And they never saw the
Yeah.
person buying the brand. Like, I really never expected necessarily to put myself out there that much.
Yeah.
But then I realized, they need to know, because lots of big brands are like, oh, we created something for you. And they're like, well, who are you? So I think they really need to know that there's a face behind it. There's a person. It's like, you know, and it's genuine.
Yes.
And I also think, full circle, that it is so important to show that, when I talk about that authenticity through all the stages, and just like you talked about, like giving back and having purpose, it follows through to our giving back as well. Like, we support other female founders on their journeys through grants and mentoring. That's been part of our brand ethos from day one. Before we had even a sale, I sponsored a pitch competition for women, for women's pitch competition. So I think then the whole thing is just, it's exciting, right? It's
Yeah.
all about supporting female founders. I'm think, this is the start of something, but my whole view is that as women-owned businesses become successful, that you have more women out there to invest back into other female founders. And that's how we will eventually kind of start to, level the access to capital. Right. So that's why I live it, I breathe it, I support other female founded businesses. I buy from them, I gift from them. I mean, it's just, I feel like this point, like totally ingrained in like everything about not just Inspiro Tequila, but me.
I'm into all that. And I'm so glad. I think there's one part of that I really want to highlight, because I speak with so many people that are 30 and above, probably 40 even above, but they've started this company. They don't necessarily want to be the face of it. And I so get that. But so many of my conversations, and the reason I started this podcast was because I've got these fitness influencers, or they're beautiful or whatever. And then behind that, there's eating disorders. There's all this, like, you smoke and mirrors. And I'm like, I have to start telling the truth. I'm on marketing branding. I can't be like the person, driving some of this, and it's not my heart space. So I wanted to bring varsity humans on the mic that didn't necessarily want to be influencers, but in the, 3, 4, 5 years, I've loved seeing people being more okay with getting in front of the mic, getting on podcasts, getting on social media. And even though it's like initially cringy because it feels so myopic, it's not. It's so critical to like display who you are, let the truth be seen, provide your ethos in the game. So it can be like, oh my God, I love this girl. She's hilarious. And she has good tequila. Like all these, like the narrative around social media is starting to shift, thank goodness, because there is a lot of cringe factor. But on the flip side, it's so powerful in connecting and telling the truth. And it's been a journey even for myself to get people over 30 for the most part to like embrace it, but it's really a great thing. So I really want to applaud that you have kind of stepped in and further shared it, because I think you can tell a lot of stuff, but when you model it and the representation's there, it's a game changer.
I appreciate that. And social media was like a whole big unknown for me, to be honest. I didn't even have a Facebook account. In fact, someone just told me yesterday, she's like, why don't I see this stuff going up on Facebook? I'm like, I don't even know how to use it. So I'm really good on LinkedIn. I'm getting Instagram. I'm like, oh, don't give me one more platform that you're making me
it's a whole thing. It's cardio. Yeah.
And it's a little bit like I feel like I kind of took an introvert and had to make her into what seems like an extrovert in order to do that and to be the voice of the brand and the face behind the brand, so that people know who it is that really created, and that there is just like, a little old me that started this all.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the whole social media thing is that's a huge learning curve for me. So talk about learning every day. That's definitely a big challenge.
The space in every landscape is now, it's changing so fast, and like things are evolving. So you really do have to stay in that humble mindset and constantly learning, and get around younger people that have grown up with this, and like talk to them, and then like find where we all can work together. Like there's so much power in that continuous like learning mindset. But it's just so great in that representation. I like that you said you linked it, like the ripple effect. People, I don't fully think grasp, but it's not just about selling better tequila and satisfying a market. And I know you said she is your brand, but actually 2 men told me about your brand. So just a couple gold, a couple gold stars there. But it's that ripple effect of now have more female business entrepreneurs, so then funding kicks up. Like the ripple effect down the way is huge. And we're voting with our dollars, so then we get into DC and big food, big pharma. Like there's just like such bigger ripples that foster change down the line. So I really love that you're intentional about that, and I hope that it sounds like you're talking about that and you're pretty transparent about that larger vision.
Yes, well, especially you just mentioned it, like, right. So the reason I started this, because I'm like, okay, I drink tequila, you drink tequila, lots of thoughtful female consumers. I couldn't figure out why brands don't focus on this consumer, right? She does. She makes like 80% of the purchasing decisions.
Yes.
She's the main entertainer of their home. And I was like, why isn't anyone focused on her? And I love that men love it. Men love the juice. It's not like I said men can't drink this, and I didn't put in like a hot pink bottle, but I'm still okay saying that our main focus, our primary consumer, who I created it and crafted around, is a female consumer. Because there are I don't even know, like 1,500 brands that are focused on a male consumer first. So I felt like it's okay that we are focused on a female consumer first, and men can still drink it, but I can be very focused on this like thoughtful female consumer who does control a lot of the purse.
Yeah. 100%. And in every industry. I mean, it's literally the household purchaser. So, and so much of it navigating the ship, we won't go down. This is a whole other podcast. I mean, we could have a phenomenal convo, but perhaps another time, but it's pretty powerful. And it's the flip side of that is like, okay, don't anyone else do it. We'll do it. We'll capitalize on it. And not only we will, foster a situation that's a professional success, but we'll facilitate a community, which in turn is power. So there's so much opportunity there that's beyond whatever your product or service is. It's about recognizing the in-between and seeing it with seeing, the full landscape for that's not even being navigated. So it's actually really exciting. On that note, I do want to make sure we get to the brand specifically, the tequila specifically. Yeah. Tell me about why is this tequila different? Tell me about the brand name, the inspiration. Give me all the details.
Yes. Okay. So Inspiro Tequila, after of course pondering and naming and hiring a naming agency, it came to me like in the middle of the night one night. It means inspired in Spanish. And so really it's named after two women who have been my biggest role models, inspired me. And that's my grandmother and my mom, both who I guess gave me the confidence to believe that I could do anything and enter into any industry they put my mind to, that I was very capable. So I feel like having them as role models in my life, it really was important to me to name it after them. And then we have two expressions of tequila. So I told you that, we created something that was additive free. So I wanted to create like the sweeter taste profiles that people tend to like, especially the women told us which brands they like, but to do it without using additives. So our Blanco tequila, and that, of course, you from a branding marketing, yes. I'm sure bottle design was really important to me. So I really wanted this like sleek and sophisticated bottle that also was easy to hold and pour, not like the big stout round bottles, something that I would like to display. So the first expression is our Blanco, and it's called a Luna Blanco because it's been rested in barrels for a really short period of time. And that's what allowed us to create these sweeter tasting notes of like vanilla and caramel with some citrus and hints of mint. And it's a very easy to drink Blanco tequila. So you really can drink it on its own, on ice, or with a little bit of soda, or just a clean cocktail. Like you don't have to mask it in some like really sugary drink because it is good enough quality it's a sippable Blanco tequila. Very little bite on the back end as well. So there's not a lot of burn, and that's was specifically created to make it an easy to drink Blanco tequila. Our Reposado is our brand new limited release. And this one was really, this is like kind of like the first one's my baby, but this one really was a passion project because it is the first and only tequila that's been aged in rosé wine barrels. So I had to kind of scour the earth to find rosé wine barrels that we could use because rosé is a young wine, so it's not traditionally aged. So it's not that easy. I kind of thought it'd be easier, but it's not that easy to find rosé wine barrels. And because I actually am a rosé fan, but don't love the after effects and the sugar, it's like, is there any way I could take rosé wine barrels and somehow age tequila in it? So we did. And it's really unique. It's aged in rosé wine barrels and finished in Pinot Noir barrels. So that's what lends it this like rose gold hue.
Yes.
So we do not use, there's no coloring added because it's confirmed additive free. So without any coloring, we're able to create the rose gold hues just based on the barrels. And it's a really rich and complex taste profile, like vanilla, caramel, white chocolate, roasted pineapple, a little bit of a nuttiness. We generally, because it's super like high quality and, really complex profile, we traditionally just show it like drinking it on like a cube, like one big cube, like how you drink like a really fine Scotch whiskey or something like that. But it's a really exciting new expression. And so it's, I think unusual. We've gotten great reviews from both of them. You talked to Mike, he just actually got the Rosa Reposado. I just had sent him a sample. But yeah, we've really received great feedback on both of them, on both expressions.
Yeah. Well, so not to interrupt you. I'm a Blanco drinker, and I'm usually tequila, soda, lemon, kind of like you. This is I've only tried the Blanco version of Inspiro, but you don't even need the lemon. You can just do the soda or just sip it. I try not to sip it neat because sometimes if it's good, you'll drink way more than you think, especially if it's really smooth.
Totally.
So we add the soda in there as like kind of like a mild hydrator. But you don't even need the lemon. It's actually genuinely very good. And if you ever gone out with me, like, I'm pretty picky, and I will sit there and ask the restaurant what tequilas they carry and blah, blah, blah. It's probably annoying, but anyways, yeah, it's it's like the person you go on out to dinner with, it's on a diet and they're asking for gluten free. It's so annoying. I'm kind of like that about tequila, but then I ask them brand questions.
Person.
Okay, good. But that's beautiful. Wait, so rosé, as you were saying that, all I'm thinking is like Nicki Minaj needs to be one of your ambassadors because she loves rosé and tequila and it's pink so and funny. Like, anyways, yeah. What was the passion behind the rosé? Just because you were a fan and so you're like, let's couple this together?
You know what? Because I was like, is there any way to combine like rosé with tequila? And then I tried like there's like a rosé infused vodka or something like that. I wanted to see how it tastes, and it was like absolutely like I couldn't drink it. And I was like, okay, well, we're not going to infuse rosé because then you're getting the wine effects. And I wanted to be in tequila, but I said I really want to do something unusual. Well, one, just like you, many women told us that they prefer a Blanco, like a clear spirit, right? Healthier connotation. So that if I was going to introduce women to like an aged expression and to go to the next level, I wanted it to be like a different and something that also resonated and maybe something a little more known to them. So if that's why I thought using rosé wine barrels, here you have something, rosé wine, fresh and light, and then tequila. And so I just thought that would be a good pairing and a good way to try and introduce this consumer to like a little bit, if you went to more of a tequila connoisseur level, to like up it like one level to like an aged expression.
Yeah.
And I also just didn't want to do something that everybody had done already. Mm-hmm. So I thought I love color. I wanted it to have like a pinkish hue, a rose gold hue. And the only way to really do that was to use wine barrels as well. If not, you're adding coloring, and I didn't want to do that or add any, coloring or flavoring to it. So that's kind of what was behind it for me, and just to create something. And it also was kind of a challenge because I brought in this legendary master distiller, and Ana Maria Romero Mena has like created many, many tequilas, but she'd never done anything in rosé wine barrels. So, and she is a sommelier as well. So I just thought it can be a fun project and a different, giving her also this like autonomy to try and create something totally new. And, you go out, there's lots of tequila brands. There are a lot to choose from. So if I was going to do it, I really wanted to make sure that we could do something like a twist on something and do it a little bit different than what anybody else is doing.
I love that. And I think that's actually again, from authentic space, an excellent play to get some of that shelf space, because it's really hard to break into restaurants. And these are other, big relationships you got to have with major retailers. But if you offer something really unique and different and you can get the consumer to request it or it becomes a thing, it's a really good way to kind of shift the industry on its head and make them start playing by your rules. Have you guys been pretty successful in navigating some of those relationships in those spaces?
Yeah. So we've had, people have been really receptive to it as far as like retail and retail chain. I also think it's helpful to be, you're not going to find a whole lot of certified women-owned brands in this realm, and especially in tequila. So, and I think a lot of them thankfully have big diversity initiatives that, for the corporations, which I appreciate. Yeah. So I think that for us is particularly helpful for retail chain. The spirits world and in general, alcohol industry, it's complicated because the laws are the same laws that have been in place since 1933 post-prohibition. So as much as retailers like us, we need a distributor to enter any state. So every single state we enter into, we need to have a distributor partner there to be able to sell. Like I can't go in and sell to any retailer without a distributor as go between. Right. So we're very focused now because I'm in Chicago. I'm building out like one market at a time and trying to, go step by step, but very thoughtfully and strategically. So we're really focused. Illinois right now, we just, launched in retail and bars and restaurants in Illinois. So focusing, working and looking at a little bit, going like inch wide, mile deep and building our presence really well in one market at a time. I think that's our approach. That's my approach, because I generally like to be pretty like meticulous
Mhm.
and make sure we've established it really well before we go to the next market. Except for Colorado's definitely on our radar, so we want to be there.
Call me. Oh no, you already know I'm gonna be well, anytime like the missions and the passions align, I'm a fan. But if it's like something I genuinely bleed in and a consumer of, I'm 100%. But anything health and wellness, like I'm gonna be talking to you, because I really want to link up with a tequila company that's for health and wellness, human specifically. And I can't agree with you more though, being in the marketing and branding game for so long, doing it like kind of slow piece by piece, because each market is super different. Even if like your
Yeah.
plans and your process is similar, it's pretty different. And I'm always deeply passionate about ambassadors and influencers in the right way, because I do think there'll be a taboo point of social media and all this overexposure being too much. But if you have like your humans in real life reverberating your gospel the right way, that's all you need. So I'm always passionate about like finding the right people, but you need those people that authentically speak to each community and each region and whatnot.
Totally. And they really have to be true fans. Like, honestly,
Oh, totally.
even people have said, oh, send it to me, we'll do something for you. I'm like, wait, let me try it first. Make sure you
Yeah.
like it. Like, I don't want people speaking on, on Inspiro Tequila's behalf if they don't really love it. Like, I want everyone to try it and
Yes.
be real fans of the brand. So I agree with that. There has to be again that authenticity, and you want real, cheerleaders
Mhm.
who genuinely love it. And you can tell when people are being real or just like holding a bottle.
Totally.
So
Yeah. Well, if you cultivate that community, this is why I love influencers have like another like ick factor and like kind of cringe there. But if you have people that are excited about what you're doing, and even with Turmeric and Tequila, if they want to wear the shirt, that's cool, but they're excited that it's a female doing this, and then they feel a part of that community. And then I can update them on things and like that. And it's just so much bigger than the brand or the product or the mission at hand. It's collective people excited about something, being a part of something, and then they get to talk about all the things around that something. So it's a really cool time to be in marketing branding with companies like you guys that are so mission driven, because we're doing so much more. We're going to talk about what we're drinking or wearing or whatever anyways. It might as well be somebody that we like are genuinely excited about, and people will bleed it. If you find the right ones, they will genuinely bleed the crap out of whatever you're doing.
good. I may need you to help me then figure out who the right ones are.
I
I
got you.
told you
Yeah.
that's a whole unknown world for me. So
It's we call me at any time. Happy to help. Even if we did something formal, great. But I always look out for my fellow mission driven humans, because it is such protective space, because it's not just about, like we said, the product and everything else. It's like we're reverberating positivity and it's high vibes. It's mission driven. It's setting example. It's representation. It's a lot of stuff that matters, and it's bigger than us. So we can always get into that. But I'm just excited about what you're doing. I hope people listening to this can see how you went from one industry and then just leaped whole head into another one. I think this is the day and age to do that. And on the flip side, and we'll kind of wrap up here, it's soul fuel for you, like outside of the business, outside of the mission. How like invigorating and like just fueling of your own personal self has this journey been?
is, I kind of think of this as my like selfish endeavor, to be honest, right? I've been home and CEO of my household and raising 3 kids for many years. And this to me is like doing something for me.
Mm.
I, you know, as great as it is, and I'm so fortunate that I could do that and have the ability to stay home. But like, you don't get that great positive feedback. My kids don't tell me every day that I'm like doing a great job or give me a performance review or a good grade or anything like that. If I get a like that was a good dinner, that's like a big win.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, I was a little bit missing that like external validation, and also being able to really like own something and dive in. I mean, and especially from seeing something from start to like getting it on the shelves, like I don't think it'll ever get old for me.
Yeah.
Literally, I walk into my local grocery store and seeing it on the shelves, and like I keep going back, and I keep walking over there, I keep going in, and just to go look at it on the shelves. I'll take another picture of it on the shelves, because it's like really seeing something come to life that you developed and created on your own. I feel like this is like my fourth child.
Mhm.
So I actually think, a lot of things, listen, a lot of balls are dropping. I'm forgetting to do a lot of things that, my family needs me to do, I'm sure, because I'm not going to say I'm great at balance and figuring it all out and getting everything done. I'm not. But I think it's an okay learning, experience for them too. And that they're learning how to like, oh, we are going to have to figure some of this out on our own because mom's really busy doing something else right now. But for me, building it, creating something, having my own company. It's really been like a dream, something I always wanted to do. And now I'm finally, you know, and there's no perfect time. So for anyone thinking about it, like, it's not like that was the ideal time. I started this in
Yeah.
February 2020, right before everything shut down in the entire world for COVID. So and I had 2 kids applying to colleges and everything. I mean, it's never a great time. There's always a million things you're juggling, but it wasn't perfect time, but it was my time. And
Yes.
this is like, for me, um, I feel like the women I'm connecting to, talking to you, all these like amazing female founders and leaders and all these different industries, like, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It just lights me up every day and keeps me going. So I actually think of this as like the whole thing is a selfish pursuit that is really invigorating me.
Yes. Well, I gotta say, and I think as females, anything we do for ourselves is selfish and what it's about us. But truthfully, if you are something lights you up and makes you that much happier and the vibration is like tangible and it's like you need to do that. You're walking in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. And if you're modeling that, your energy changes, everyone around you changes. It's almost like you have a responsibility to follow your heart into it. And I rattle into like cliches, but seriously, it's so critical. And I hear this so many times with my strong females, like this was for me. And I mean, you give yourself everywhere, but it's like, time out. It's not a myopic to be on social media. It's not myopic to go do this. Like you owe it to yourself. You have a responsibility to walk in your truth and where you feel aligned because you're shifting the energy and everything around you. Your kiddos will see that, your partner will see, like everything shifts,
Yeah.
but it's the shift in us is like the hard part. So I'm so glad. And I give you all the gold stars for all the thankless dinners that were probably amazing. My mom had 4 of us. I don't even know how. So I'm guessing that was the easy part, but I really applaud you chasing that. And I don't think it's selfish at all. So I just have to say that I think it's a responsibility and I'm so glad you're doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I feel like it's like me living a little bit of my truth. Like, this is a person that they didn't know me before being just their mom. I was a really, really driven, intense, hardworking, like, I did that at home also, but like, outside of the home. And now I think they're getting to see that a little bit about me and hopefully appreciate that and hopefully setting some good examples and,
Sure.
for them. But I think it's kind of good to see me a little bit more and in what I always thought of as kind of my element. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's amazing. And balance is a lie. So let the balls drop, whatever. We all,
yes,
this is something I'm still learning, but it's like, you just embrace the chaos and like, it'll get done. And if it doesn't, we're doing the best we can. What is like the one last piece of advice you have for anyone, perhaps a mom looking to make a leap, but like any piece of advice that you wish you would have heard as you were starting this journey?
gosh, when I was starting, um, I would say I try and live by this like Sarah Blakely quote now, where is if someone can do something 80% as well as you can, let them do it. So it's very hard. It's hard to let go of you're starting something on your own. It's really hard to let go of anything. And I have a very difficult time. I'm a micromanager to a fault. And so it's hard to do that, but it's really necessary. Like, I'm like one body trying to do too many jobs.
Mhm.
And and even if it's work related, home related, like, there's certain things that don't require me. There's someone who's better at it, more skilled at it, can do it quicker than me. My social media is a great example. I'm slow. I'm not that great. Someone else can handle it way better than
Yeah.
I can. So that's a little bit like, I wish I'd started that from the beginning, but just finding people who can take some of those things off your plate, because I just think at some point you can't do everything.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
some of the things really well, but you can't do everything all the time.
It's the truth. I mean, I started this podcast for other people, but every time I ask a question like that, I feel like universe comes to whip my ass because that's something I'm literally specifically focusing on right now. Like letting go, stop trying to do everything. You're exhausted. You're like, so, thank you, received, even if that wasn't specifically for me, I'm taking it in. I think that's so critical because it is hard. And, when you're representing yourself and you're working, it's your baby. It's hard to let something be 80% that isn't your 80% even. So it's a whole thing, but, that's phenomenal advice and received. Like I said,
I'm a work in progress with that. So I'm trying.
okay.
I mean, I'm like trying to, bring that into my own
Yes.
head as well. Cause I don't know if I'm great at implementing it, but I'm trying.
Yeah. Progress over perfection. Like I said, one day at a time, we chip it away and we get a little bit better. Okay, so Mara, I love all this. I have 100 more questions, but I want everyone to go check out Mara as the human. We love the company, but I want you to check the human behind the cause is everything. So get yourself some Inspiro Tequila. Go check out what Mara has going on. Mara, where do we find you on social media handles, websites? Hit us with it.
Perfect. So you can find me on Be Inspired by Mara, BE Inspired, BY, Mara, MARA. Also on Inspiro Tequila, so INSPIRO Tequila. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, lots of things, Pinterest. I told you I'm not great at all the social media, but you can find me on LinkedIn, where I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform on LinkedIn, on Mara Smith. And you could find us online. So if you're not in the Illinois area and you want to order, we ship to 45 states. You can find us on inspirotequila.com. So www.inspirotequila.com.
Professional. Look at that. A podcast or two, we can tell. I love it. Go dig into the details on the journey, the human, like I said, all of it. I think you'll be deeply inspired. I genuinely endorse the Blanco tequila. I'm sure I will endorse the other one. I have not tried it yet, and we always keep it 100, but I'm a fan, and I'm picky. So go see what they have going on and get inspired. And I hope somebody that's listening, that's thinking about taking the leap, go do it. I love that you said there's no perfect time, but it was my time. I think that is, that in itself can be a mission statement of just go out there and put out to win. Mara, thank you so much for your time and energy. I can't wait to see where this goes in 6 months. I'll be stalking you guys no matter what for fitness ambassador space, because we're just going to be a super fan over here. But I can't wait to see how things grow, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks, Kristen. It was so great being on. And I'm so glad that you tried it and love it too.
Yes. Like I said, we'll be chatting more for sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.